Hey, what's up, everybody? It's me, Danae, and I'm here with a message for you. Happy Monday, everyone. It's September 16th, fresh start of a new week. We are getting closer and closer to the fall equinox and really closing out the summer season officially in less than a week from now. But I'm actually forgetting that I'm cutting the cards because that's just habit. But actually today is going to be the full moon partial lunar eclipse message. So as always, I'm going to do the message first, and then I'm going to do the reading. Timestamps in the description box and or in the comments, most likely both, as soon as I get around to the comments once it's posted. So you can govern yourselves according to your preference in tuning in. But without further ado, we're going to jump right into it. This is the full moon message. All right, so again, today is the 16th, but the full moon partial lunar eclipse is happening tomorrow, the 17th, and I actually forgot to jot down the exact time, Eastern time, but I know it's after 10 p.m., so it's a nighttime lunation as opposed to morning or midday. This is the harvest moon and also a super moon, and of course it's in the sign of Pisces. So just a few days away from the fall equinox, it's almost harvest time. And your undivided creative consciousness is the cash crop. Imagine, literally imagine in true Piscean form, fully functioning in the duality of reality with balance. Left and right brain, higher and lower nature, inside out, masculine and feminine, to be submersively aligned with the natural order of the universe is the precursor of a dream come true. This lunation is just what the Creator conjured. By Creator, I mean you, and by conjured, I mean manifested, as a way to release anything that could defer that dream. While this is not the most ideal time to initiate a new campaign of creativity, plainly put, a lunar eclipse is not the time to actively manifest. It is a wonderful time to clear your canvas or your workspace, so to speak, of unwanted and or unworthy distractions. Being intentional to connect with what inspires you at best may be a necessary comfort throughout the unpredictable and uncontrollable effects of this transformative transit. There's a special emphasis on release, but of course, one can't help but notice what may be desired to be acquired. My best offering is to duly note such observations with consideration for all that is yet to be clarified post the eclipse. You could be surprised at what a difference a new revelation makes in shaping or reshaping the heart's true desires with full disclosure. There's a great deal of truth to be harvested by way of this full moon, and intensity interwoven in the other transits. There's almost too much going on in the cosmos to cover. Perhaps that might translate into our physical lives as above, so below, where change is happening at such a rate that seems a bit overwhelming. Emphasis on seems, though. Overwhelm is a choice. The mere feeling of it that is assumed can be counteracted by the commitment to just go with the flow. It sounds so cliche, indeed. However, that's really the most of what's requested of any human being at this time. The only thing that can effectively be managed is your reception and conception of reality. choosing to embrace change for the absolute best, and what's more, as a product of your own manifestations, puts you in a high-powered position of co-creativity with the universe. The most dynamic power couple there is spirit and flesh, and they're about to get hitched. So breathe in grace and exhale gratitude for what will inevitably be a holy matrimony and an amazing honeymoon that might just last happily ever after. Cheers to that. All right, so that's the full moon in Pisces message, and we're going to jump right into the reading. This is the full moon Pisces reading. Full moon lunar eclipse at that. Gotta put some respect on this lunation because it's definitely a powerful one. There's a great deal of emphasis on just kind of grounding yourself in submission and even surrender to the changes that may be underway, but certainly for the greatest good of all. It's like, you know how we are as humans. We don't often take too kindly to changes, especially when they're happening at a rapid velocity, which this particular transit has the potential to be, or at least an intensity, I'll say, because this is in Pisces. So we're talking about endings. We're talking about the last sign in the zodiac. We're talking about closure. You know, we're talking about tying up loose ends for the purposes of a new beginning. Sometimes that process isn't the most comforting, depending on how amenable you are to change and transformation. But what we definitely know is by universal order, you have to bring things to a close, i.e. you can't get to Aries, which is the initiation of new life and the beginning of the zodiac, without going through Pisces. It's just that it's a full moon, an eclipse, and in Pisces that kind of amps up the intensity. And as I didn't want to go into too much detail about the other transits, but there's a lot of other counteractive energy that is intensifying this time as well. Hella planets in retro, and you know, it just even being at the threshold of a change in the season itself is, you know, comes with its own challenge of intensity. To just stay grounded, you know, and as I said, go with the flow, be what's the right word? Submissive to the aspect of release and rest and rejuvenation and regeneration and reflection, and revelation. You know, there could be a great deal of information that is clarified at this time, different truths being revealed, clarification on maybe what hasn't been so clear for quite some time. And, you know, there's just a lot I could say about it, but ultimately just surrender to universal order, because it's always going to be working for you than it is against you. We're the ones that work against it and then ultimately put more stress on our human being, you know, when we could just go with the spirit and let it kind of take the wheel for a little minute. And the thing that we can absolutely control, as I said, is our reception and conception of what is experienced. We get to determine what things are, what things mean, how we can react and respond to them. All of that is within our own power and authority. And, you know, really taking accountability for what we've manifested. Like this particular lunation, I heard one person say that I trust, and matter of fact, I'll shout him out. His name is Gemini Brown, and I just happened to stumble on his quick video about this. I think it was last night or the night before, I can't remember. But he was saying that this particular transit connects back to March of 2016. I was trying to think, like, aside from me being a pretty new mom at that point, because I had my son November 2015, and then 2016, he wasn't even barely, 5-6 months. He wasn't even 6 months yet. So I was fresh on the motherhood scene. But outside of that, I mean, which was transformative in itself. So maybe I'm kind of actually revealing it to myself of what that moment was or what that time frame was given. But when he said that, I was like, man, I don't even really know what I was doing in 2016, so long ago. And it also is quite projective of, first and foremost, the next year, because we're going to revisit these concepts by the next eclipse cycle, and and then circle back around to where we are now this time next year. So 2025 will be very significant for how we clear the canvas, so to speak, for what we create moving forward. And the gotcha is it's already been idealized, and our intentions, our choices, and our focus of manifestation. But the allowance and the reception is the key piece. And sometimes us as humans have the greatest challenge in allowing things to be, even allowing ourselves to be, and certainly in the reception of what we ultimately have already called in. Sometimes we can get a bit handsy on the potter's wheel, and try to take over the formation or whatever, the claymation. I don't even know how you say it, and it end up spilling all over into a blob of a mess, and I'm certainly not projecting that for anyone in this season. I think anybody that's in alignment with the divine order, with the universal order, however you see things, like just the flow of destiny and fate at this time, you're already in good hands. Like I said, it's just a matter of believing that and allowing things to unfold, and trusting that everything that may be releasing at this time is a part of that unfolding and that unveiling, so just let it be. Let it be. Let it be. Yeah. All right, let's get into it. Knight of Cups. Knight of Cups, some type of emotional offer. Maybe a proposition. Oh, is that sunshine in that cup, young man? Could be, could be. Let's see here. Oh, wow. Exposure of a betrayal. But it looks like, let me not speak too soon, I'm going to place this here, so it could be exposure of betrayal, but the upside, like the happy ending, so to speak, or, yeah, look at this with the Moon card. I'm going to put that here. this could even be. And then we got this here. Oh, and there's the strength. Okay. All right. Yeah. So this is like, I heard pilgrimage. A pilgrimage? This could be, it's like somebody's resurrected experience here with the moon, the 10 of swords. So there was some mysterious occurrence that took somebody out. Maybe somebody was out for the count. But it was a completion of a cycle. And then the Sun card is here, which is like the dawn of a new day. Like literally, I feel like someone was reborn or resurrected. Maybe this is a spiritual death, into some new identity. And like I said, like this is someone carrying love in their midst in the highest frequency with the Knight of Cups. And not only is he carrying it, but in this case, which is almost rare sometimes for me to see the Knight of Cups like this, he's carrying it with intentions to offer it or to share it. And here is the confirmation of that with the Six of Pentacles. Like there is an intention for a balanced exchange, an equal give and take, reciprocity, like to be just as much of an asset or an influence to others as he may even anticipate to encounter, you know, because it's certainly, one thing about it is nothing wrong with having a desire to be fulfilled, especially when you have an intention to be an offering. You know, like, of course, your first point of refuel or fuel in general is fuel first is the source, and refuel is by way of your intention to continue to resource the source through your own being and not necessarily depend on that exchange from the outside of you. But it's certainly, especially if you are filled, you know, or satisfied to some degree, particularly from the source and from a highly productive place, first and foremost, here's the Strength card, then you definitely should have the expectation to, well, I'll say maybe expectation is too strong, but I would say like you're well within your rights to expectation. I don't know, expectation maybe feels a bit demanding, but I don't know, like I don't know how else to say it. You know, I feel like it's not a bad thing, although our human conditioning sometimes can tip us imbalanced on one side of the scale or the other, to have an expectation for a fair exchange, to not necessarily feel like you have to give more of yourself than you desire to, or certainly more than what is being returned to secure any particular source or resource, because that would be the dependency. And then not to feel like anybody owes you anything either. So it's kind of like you're good either way. You can go around with your cup in your hand because it's like you're BYOB, bringing your own blessings to the party. But you're certainly open in case you run into, you know, a soiree of sorts where it just so happens that it's open bottle, or I mean it's we call it open bar, you know, where everybody is more or less on the vibe that you're on. You got something to share, they got something to share, and it's a party, you know. So there's that piece. But you know what? I love this because, especially coming out of an experience of betrayal, this says that somebody has definitely evolved a great deal. Because if you consider, usually when you've been on the bad end of a deal, you know, where something unfavorable has happened to you, it takes a while for you to recover from the experience itself, and then from the trauma, the like residual trauma, maybe even the PTSD of recreating that experience yourself simply by putting yourself more or less in those same conditions. So where maybe you were deeply loving and caring and devoted in some type of way, but perhaps it was in spaces that were not stable, or that weren't on the same level of give and receive that either you were on, or that you would have anticipated or expected would be the standard. And I what I'm saying is, it's like somebody, instead of allowing what they experienced and what they incurred in the most unfavorable way to taint this here cup of love at the Knight of Cups, they somehow, that's probably the point of the resurrection or the rebirth, because they have allowed that experience to be transformative in the way that has just reshaped their perception of equal, balanced, and harmonious exchanges, and on maybe even refining their resistance and contribution to those encounters. So that here, you know, a lot of times I even see the Ten of Swords as almost like a self-betrayal. And in the grand scheme of things, a lot of times, we do bear some responsibility for even our most unfavorable circumstances. Not all the time, on account of what we've incurred at our worst, but absolutely all the time, we do bear the responsibility and accountability for how we move beyond this point. And this is saying to me that somebody definitely was betrayed, sabotaged, done dirty. You know, it seems like it was like almost, you know, like a takedown situation where someone may not have even known that they were either behind enemy lines, sleeping with the enemy, loving the enemy, friends with the enemy. Like there was like some type of illusionary threat in their midst that they weren't able to really perceive, you know, without haze or without a veil, until it was damn near too late. Like, when you had the Ten of Swords, you weren't supposed to get up from this type of experience. You were supposed to be out for the count. And yet I'm feeling like somebody did get up. Somebody, not only did they get up, but they have been revived, and their perspective of love has been renewed in a very forward thinking way, where they're not like, I'm never trusting again, I'm never loving again, I'm never sharing again. No, quite the opposite. they're learning to just be selective, perhaps, with whom they share with, and also with those spaces and places that they offer themselves to. You know, what I'm trying to say is the giving and receiving part, because just because you're willing to share with anybody doesn't mean that you should. And even in some ways, just because people appear to be willing to share with you doesn't mean you should accept it. So here it is with the Strength card, is that balance in all of that knowing, you know, and the carnal was default of our nature, you know, to want to be in agreement, to want to be in connection, in contribution, to want to be accepted, understood, all of that good stuff, by way of, even for the matters of security, stability, and survival itself. There are certain things that often we blind ourselves to for the sake of, you know, that concept of security, which sometimes can be an illusion. But this here is the balance of the spirit and the flesh, you know, which is something that I kind of touched on even in the message, that's what is being refined throughout this transit. Oh, this makes a lot of sense. So there's some things that have been lost, but those cycles are literally being closed through this lunation, from the inside out, you know, and your perception and conception of what those experiences may have impressed upon you, or how you may have been impacted by it, and any residue that could be, you know, lingering or remaining, that ultimately is keeping, you know, that may be deferring this realization of bliss here. This is the centric point, the sun, and how, again, you come out of the darkness, out of disfavor, out of misfortune, and still maintain this sense of security with self, and also sensibility and or sensationalism of community, but in the good way, because I don't think sensationalism is like always the best word, but to still be excited about the collective, your place in it, your exchange with it, so on and so forth. Because a lot of the things that have occurred, like, I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, let's consider since 2016, you know, I've learned a great deal, you know, in that time frame myself. Well, what was that, 8 years ago now at this point, around about? Not quite, but almost. And I mean, consider all that you've evolved to become, hopefully, from then till now, and the things that have been revealed to you about who you are, your surroundings, your relationships, your ideals, your traditions, your morals, your standards. There's so much that has really changed over that time period, where, what was I saying here? It slipped my mind. Hold on. Damn it, I lost my thought. I lost my thought just that fast. Hold on. Transition over the last 8 years or so. I really lost it. Shoot, maybe that's about to be kind of what happens here. Because the 10 of swords is like mental energy, you know? So it could be a great deal of what's been kind of like stocked up in your mind space and your mind field on account of your experiences, even on account of the mystique of your evolution, you know, the ways in which you've grown that you can't even really put your finger on, but you know something, you definitely can consider point A to now, you know, and something having happened a great deal in between for you to be who you are now. It could almost be a cleansing in that way of what's, again, that residue that's just been stocked up, you know, of memories and even like your way of thinking about your experiences in ways that you may not have realized you were still holding on to, or ways that are still holding on to you that you aren't really, you know, as connected with anymore, but being intentional and having the cosmic support to actually release those things is what is clearing the path for a much lighter existence, literally lighter with the Sun card. Something that is worth sharing, even that could even be like testimonial. That's what I was seeing here with the Six of Pentacles, like somebody not just having resources to share, but information, best bets, suggestions, again, testimony, eyewitness accounts of things that they encountered, overcame, and have evolved from that may actually help someone else in their own experience of this transformation or this transition. Yeah, I don't know if that's exactly where I was going, but hey, I'll take it. But that definitely is an expression of strength here and true power to like I was saying before, this is like as above, so below reflection here. Your spiritual nature, which is your higher mind, your more supreme self, that's that part of you that is infinite, limitless, maybe even eternal if you believe so, and then still being in co-creativity with the aspect of you that is very well grounded in the 3D, that is sensational, and is sensible, very sensible, sensitive as a matter of fact, and not, you know, not what's the right word, not dismissing that aspect of yourself either, because that's just as important in this spiritual human experience as any of it, you know. Otherwise, just simply being activated in the spiritual nature of life, you'd just be energy floating around, you know, with no sensation, no purpose, at least, you know, conceptually, in terms of, you know, how we feel in the 3D. But it's the two, like I said in the message, that are the holy matrimony, the spirit and the flesh. And so here it is, the energy that we've been conditioned to condemn. Here it is, what I was saying, sometimes we've even sabotaged ourselves. There's conditioning that we've had to condemn the flesh through concepts of societal norms and religion and what is socially acceptable and the status quo and so on and so forth, on and on and on, that sometimes, you know, sometimes compel us to disconnect, you know, that relationship one for the other. Like the flesh is too dirty to connect with the spirit, or the spirit is too pristine to accept the flesh, when it's the two that are in divine alignment, that have the greatest resonance in this reality, Now, otherwise, I'm not so sure just yet. I don't know how all that gets to work just yet. But here, it's absolutely one to another, not one without the other. So it's given that some of the concepts and our ways of thinking about what we, perhaps, here it is, the moon, what is mystical, what we don't know, and what sometimes can scare us or intimidate us, is what is being ultimately laid to rest and brought to some closure again. So not only is there exposure or enlightenment for some of those mysteries, but there also is a renewed concept of submission on, I would say, a soul level here with the Sun and the Knight of Cups, because literally the soul with the Sun, but the cups with the water energy is like a resonance through the spirit and the sensation of the man itself, that I love that it's the Knight in this case, and now I understand why I'm a bit more, open to the Knight energy, is because it allows you the space and opportunity to grow from that initial point of discovery. That this implies that there's even more to look forward to, and how you allow this revelation or this, and really with the Sun, here's the baby here, and then to the Knight. So this is speaking to even in quite an accelerated rate of change that almost seemingly could feel like it's happening overnight, which I also spoke to in the message. But that, as I said, there's still even more in store than what you can perceive at the initiation or at the top of the threshold, or the crossover threshold moment of this new sensibility with self, if that makes sense. But the Six of Pentacles is like a gift, and I feel like this could even be like a universal exchange that, is not giving desperation to me with the Six of Pentacles today. It just seems like where your source is, a healthy point of here it is, like I was saying, like it's okay to be open to receive, as just as you are willing to give. Here it is, as I said, sometimes us as humans battling this duality, we often submit to the conditioning that we're not worthy to receive, especially from some higher source or higher power, But here it's an exchange. There is a balanced exchange rate here. And I love that I'm seeing this almost like a higher power given to humanity, but it's in a human form, because I think it's expressing like how the gap is closing between what even is higher and lower, as I also said in the message. So this is kind of deep, that how we perceive that chasm, I guess, so to speak, or that void between our flesh and the divine is what's being closed. How we have ultimately self-sabotaged and betrayed ourselves out of a deeper connection, and a direct reception of this energy and power is now what's being reformed, and we being revived in this new order. And perhaps, it's just more of the expression of this power through humanity, even, that, I'm seeing it almost as like a God being given to other humans, but in the flesh. That is us, that we are becoming more of an empowering, reflective source one to another. Here it is, where he has something to share, but there's also something that is returned and received in that exchange, even if it's not like a match, an identical match where I give you a little water, you give me a little water. It's something here about just the sheer ability to add value by way of your experiences, to offer information by way of your personal testimony, maybe even to supply resources that can help someone less fortunate, or to help someone get a, curve their voids to achieve at a faster rate than maybe you were. That still is also a return and is also rewarding. So something here about that is deeper than just like, charity and benevolence and, things of that sort. Is definitely feeling more spiritual, but with the Pentacles, it maybe speaks to the fact that it's the practicality of spirituality that could be most impactful right now. Like people need to sense and see and feel and touch the spirit in flesh form now more than they just need to be kind of like romanticized about it, or seduced, I'll say, about it. Like seduced by the spirit, you know what I mean? Like they actually need to be, or want to be, truly satisfied from a carnal perspective. So there it is again, not forfeiting the need and the desires of your human being for the sake of any higher spiritual was idealism, or I guess sensationalism in that case. That we're being given permission to reverence the whole of ourselves now. And also, it's like almost being given like the green light, like it's okay for you to have desires. It's okay for you to want to be satisfied. There's nothing wrong with you on that account. It's just, it's always been and it always will be about balance. Six of Pentacles. All right. Certainly not just about deprivation, where it's almost perceived to be the core of spiritual affluence itself. If I can deny my flesh, then I must be holy. I must be sanctified. I must be, sacred. But is that the truth though? Or is that a perspective that's being reformed in real time? All right, so we got another knight. Now this knight is going back into the night. So it seems. So what's on the bottom here? The Eight of Pentacles. So I don't know, this could be the inflection of those that insist to work harder, especially by the means of maintaining this more familiar, even though it's mystical, but there's something about maintaining some familiar mindset and holding tight to that is what some may prefer, which, I mean, duh, obviously, right? But what does it matter here? Because the Eight of Pentacles in this regard, or in that regard, if that's what I'm saying, means that some people are almost kind of like chaining themselves to the plow. That's what I'm hearing. Like they're insistent to maintain a certain mindset, maybe even to hold on to the ideals of the past, even the ones that may or may not have been favorable or may not have made much sense, or at least don't right now. It's something about the comfort and that false sense of security that people, some may be more, what's the right word? Well, I'll say complacency, and that false sense of security that people may be more comforted by. It's like seeing an industry crumbling all around you, or, you know, the handwriting on the wall that the job is not, you know, it's not doing well. Hella cutbacks, you know, hella layoffs, but you still, you know, instead of considering a new line of work, or expanding your options, or considering other avenues of security, you're still showing up every day like nothing's happening. Like, nope, I'm good. I'm going to maintain. Or even more so, like, even still in the fear that you could be next on the chopping block, but almost like feeling like you have no other choice. But we know that there's always choice, but there's something here about being so insistent on holding tight to what may actually be slipping from reality more and more, that you be willing to do that. There's somehow more comfort in that than there is facing some unknown future possibility, you know, that you may not be so familiar with. Maybe even changing your mindset around work and creativity, and you know, the concept of work and reward itself, and, you know, what that made. It's like the transition of when, you know, how mindsets had to change about working in a job for longevity and for retirement and for your pension, and for, you know, like where there was a focus on the time and the dedication and commitment you made to a company, with the expectation and even some entitlement to some return of security for your future. That shifted a great deal. Like, many of us are old enough to have seen how that shifted right before our eyes, where there's not as much of an invested value in longevity in a particular organization or a company or a field, or people change their whole career, you know, every day, go back to school for something different, or just completely venture into something else that's, you know, altogether new for them. Whereas before, that was like taboo, you know, that's unheard of, or just reserved for a small few. It's that's happening all over again, but just in a different form. And again, I feel like it's more spiritual than anything, like really releasing these concepts. It's like, in one regard, where we are being affirmed to confirm our carnal nature and be accepting of it, like almost nurturing of it as it is naturally. Stop trying to like force it to be something else that it's not, and, you know, kind of allowing it to be organically what it is, and be inspired from a spiritual perspective as to how to enhance and maybe bridge the gap where you feel there may be between the spirit and the flesh, as opposed to it being a force, you know, which, if you as you can imagine, like, crash diets don't last too long, because you're forcing yourself into some deprivation, or into some new order of a lifestyle that your mind, your body, and your spirit are not all in alignment for. So it's something here about, you know, a reorder of our mind state, in terms of what even is possible to prosper in or prosper of, and then initiating ourselves within that possibility, and almost even as a example, of that possibility. And that's where the Six of Pentacles comes in, as opposed to holding on what's more or less fleeting at this point. I feel like I could say that better. But let's get a few more cards because I'm getting low on time. What was that again? The Eight of Pentacles. Yeah, and it's really about, you know, because the Eight of Pentacles in the highest frequency is about doing the work that you love, you know, that you feel inspired to do, that you feel purposeful in, you know, that is rewarding first and foremost on account that you get to do it. And then, of course, it does yield a profit. There's still a bit of a tug of war in that concept. Like I said, which just as surely as the dependency of a pension has dissipated, is as surely as the idea that you have to do a thing that is practically secure in order to survive is also dissipating and being disproved day to day by, like I said, we as the examples in some way, shape, or form. And here it is, the Ten of Pentacles. This is retirement fund, retirement money here. And not just for you to, you know, live a moderately normal life, or, you know, I guess I should say satisfying life, you know, just enough money to keep you from being a greeter at Walmart at age 70. You know what I mean? This is like nest egg for you to retire in bliss, for you to leave a legacy, an inheritance behind for those, you know, for your children and their children, perhaps even, and so on and so forth, or at least leave something behind that can be, you know, that is sustainable and also has the potential to be magnified. Like it could even just be an idea, or, you know, a business that perhaps it wasn't much when you had it, but you leave it behind in the hands of your children and they could multiply it into an enterprise. You know, it could be that, but this really does speak to, this is not like heaven ever after. This is like having a fortune that you also have the privilege to partake in, but so much so that there is enough for the future. You know, perhaps once you have transitioned on, there's still something left of you and for your legacy. That's the idea, generational wealth. And the King of Swords is here. Yeah, because it's on account of what? A renewed mind about what it is that actually puts you in the ideal position to achieve this reality. The truth about that is shifting drastically. And I mean, this is nothing to some generations that are like, duh, you know, that are already living the dream right before our eyes. But for some that are older than me, and particularly my generation, you'd be surprised how much of a challenge this still is to transition to, you know, to transition from. Especially my generation, because, well, I can't say that because older people still, but I feel like we're kind of caught in the middle, because there's some part of us that has that adventure spirit and we know what is possible. We're actually perceiving it be done, like I said, by younger generations than us. So we know that it works. We know that it's possible. We know that it's doable, but there's still some old constructs that we're a bit attached to as well, you know, and really, as I said earlier, like the residue in the mind of what is normal, what's expected, what is possible, is still kind of like, you know, still got its clutches in just a little bit. And it's because there's a greater weight of responsibility on those that are kind of in my age bracket, where here it is, as I said, my reflection was being a mom, where you still are feeling like the intensity of that responsibility, not only to maintain security for you, but also for your future and your legacy, i.e. your children, but in a way that somehow is stable enough to ground that, to fortify that foundation, but revolutionary enough not to have your children recycle it. You know, there's the challenge for us, because we have the old constructs, of which some are dying out, but some aren't. You know, it's just a matter of your loyalty and your commitment to those constructs in a spiritually integral way, not just satisfying the flesh's you know, obsession with security and mortality, you know, and even fear of survival, but really the things that truly, again, Eight of Pentacles in the upright, make you feel purposeful, make you feel fulfilled to do. So it's like balancing those two, where it's like it's there, it's available, scarcely, but still so. But are you available for it? Are you committed to it? But then at the same time, what you are committed to, what is calling you, drawing you out from your spiritual nature, of your spiritual nature, could be the very thing that doesn't feel so secure, or at least seem, again, emphasis on seem so secure. So it begs the question, like, are you responsibly building a foundation for your dependents in a wise way, with potential that is so insecure in nature, you know, at least conceptually, you know? Now, the reason why I say it's harder for us is because we're in like balancing two worlds, with the consideration of what we're balancing those two worlds for, which is our children. I feel like older folks that have already raised us, for instance, they have for the most part, they have relinquished that burden of our dependency. At least, hopefully they have, you know, ideally they have, where now they just really have to worry about themselves and check in with whether or not they're doing what's best for them at this point. They don't have to really worry about whether what they do is an effect on their children, who are good and grown mostly at this time. It's just a matter of making sure that you are living your best life, which is amazing. I think that's beautiful. But that's where I feel justified in saying that those that still have children to raise are the ones that, you know, and are brought up from the old school and transitioning into the new school, i.e. old world, new world mentalities, have the greatest challenge. And we may be the ones that are feeling the brunt of this transit that much more intensely, because it's almost like pushing us through that ring of fire, which I think, by the way, is what's coming up for the solar eclipse in October, is a ring of fire effect of the, again, rebirthing of ourselves, you know, but for what? The sake of the future. All by the matter of truth, though, you know, so I guess we can't go wrong as long as you're in integrity with what is true to you and for you. But by God, yeah, here's the future right here, so that when they emerge, it's no, you know, it's no holds barred, it's no questions asked. What is left for them to now take and reinvest in themselves, or even, again, take this pentacle and magnify it into some new creativity of sorts, if need be. I'm gonna take both of these because they fill up. Wow, and here, look at this. Here's this and this. So it's something, oh no, this didn't come up. I thought this Eight of Pentacles, Eight of Swords came up already, but that was the, what was that? It was the Eight of Pentacles, but I don't know what I was thinking this was when I first looked at it, because that's what was drawing my attention the most. Like, this is back again, but it wasn't. It's this. So anyway, it could even be like, you know, I mean, really, honestly, it's funny because it feels like our investment in the future is what ultimately it leads to our jailbreak. You know, like, we're investing in ourselves to invest for the purposes of the future, and the future is what ultimately is going to set us free to live in this reality full time. This Eight of Pentacles, like, I do what I love energy full time. That's what these three cards are giving to me in this moment. So it's it's a wise investment to make, I guess, you know, to affirm anyone that may need it, you know, need the confirmation to know that, you know, the thing that you're doing that may seem the strangest is the strongest. It's making all the difference. It's not like there's a lot of I struggle to say stress, but I'll say like a great deal of intense focus on, you know, doing the right things to make sure that your children have the best opportunities. And not to say that hasn't been the focus for all generations before mine, you know, like before me. It has. I'm just speaking to the stark transition of the ages that we're currently living in, where we are actually, you know, like I was saying, like the living witnesses of what that transition looks like. We're living through it. We're experiencing it. We are, many of us have activated it, you know, to some degree. And now we are advancing it by way of our continued commitment to an evolved perspective in ways that we can't even see it's happening, but also in ways that have already occurred that we weren't even aware. We're kind of leading the charge, or opening the gates, so to speak. But I think I'm here to pretty much say, confirming maybe even to myself and to anyone that can relate, is that it's an investment well made in yourself, you know, first and foremost. You know how you kind of got to put the oxygen mask on yourself before the baby? It's like we would have had to do for ourselves what we would have wanted for our children in order for it to pay off in the long run. Not even just for them, but then even turn around and be a residual return for ourselves. Because what we're instilling in them as what now is considered, you know, a revolutionary mindset amidst some, you know, stringent norms at this time, is what is going to shape the world that we all inhabit. You know, not too far from now. You know, many of us will still be alive to see the effects of this change, this, you know, this shifting in the age, and to be affected by it. And again, I feel like these two here, it's like he's paying the bill to release this Eight of Swords from spiritual imprisonment and more or less mental captivity, which could be transferable or one and the same. Now, by then, more or less, many of us that are, you know, putting in the work now may already be retired, hopefully, and definitely not working at Walmart if we can help it, if there is such a thing at that point. But the Eight of Pentacles is just, to me, again, affirming and may even be what is being assured, that the ideal is to work purposefully. Like that would be the collective mentality at that point, not something that is strange, obscure, or even revolutionary at that point, that it would literally just be the norm. My throat just started itching real bad. I'm gonna close it up here because I'm already super long. Oh, and here's another kid that I feel like the pages are giving the energy of right up under the sun at that, of the generations that get to be born into a reality that is already established, well established, put it like that. Comparative to myself, where we were born into the world as one thing and had to pretty much live through the exposure, you know, like the expose of what it truly has been, perhaps all along, or behind the veil, while we're also grounding ourselves in the concepts of like the new order, you know, of life and what that gets to be. You know, that again, kind of being in limbo a bit, where we know that there's much about what we thought was true that isn't, but we're still not quite crystal clear on what absolutely is and what's affirmative. Like that's still kind of being revealed, like really in real time. So these are the inhabitants, or, you know, the beneficiaries of a reality that is ready-made, that doesn't have to be deciphered or decoded or debunked. You know, like there are no illusions to have to filter through. Like it just is what it is, you know, for whatever it is at that point. I guess time will tell, but it's what it is. So therefore you can be who you are, you know, with less resistance and without the challenge of kind of having to, you know, maybe it eliminates this here where there needs to be a death of any sort in order for there to be a rebirth, because you're already born, you know, like almost like, you know, like born sinless and stainless, you know, and born into a reality free of iniquity to some degree. So there's nothing to be reborn from, you know. I wonder if that makes sense. Because you know how they say like Jesus was born, what's the word that's used? I forget the word that's used to express how he was born, but it's like he was born already without, like already born in his true identity. Like somehow he came knowing, you know, it was already ingrained in him, which I guess perhaps is why it's the ideal of him having to come through a virgin mother who wasn't, you know, chalked with all her own, you know, iniquities just yet, which, you know, is all conceptual right now in this moment, so take it as you will. But the idea, even as I'm saying it, translates to what I've been saying about how there has been having to be a rebirth, particularly through generations like myself that have been stained by the illusions of the past, by the lies, you know, like I don't even know what to call it, like, you know, our psychological, our subconsciousness even has been tainted on levels that where some of us are still filtering through, you know what I mean? So even the known and the unknown is the thing that we've had to pretty much be, again, reborn or resurrected from, you know, to have a spiritual death altogether is exactly what I'm saying in the practical sense as to how now we are honored with the opportunity to give life to children that experience life differently. You know, and it's hard because there's some things that kind of do still filter over or can still filter through, even with our best intentions. But for the most part, the children that are here now don't understand the life that we know when we were coming up. And it's, yes and true, it's all the same before that. Got it. But it's something about now that is like the impact of the change that's occurring now is something that it's not typical, you know. It's not like, yeah, well, we know times are changing. It's like it has the potential, as I said in the message, to be a happily ever after type of change, type of transformation and transition. Like we never have to go through that again. Nobody does. That it's not just the natural occurrence that you have to unlearn some aspects of life that you were told are real, that don't make sense, to relearn something new. It's like, no, now our children can be rendered and reared spotless on account of our commitment to it for ourselves, which has been hard and which is hard, but certainly their children, for sure, on account of our commitment, absolutely have the potential to be born spotless without any illusion whatsoever to contend with. And that's what I feel like I'm trying to say and what I'm trying to get to, like in the way of Jesus, so to speak, where how he came through, like his purpose, his identity, his spirit, and his flesh all intact and untainted. That's the concept here. Like all what so is written was already walking his path, teaching in the temple, you know, teaching the Pharisees in the temple when he was younger than 12 years old. You know, like that's the idea, that we get to completely shave that learning curve and liberate life, perhaps as it was just always meant to be, you know, before corruption. Wow, and here's the Strength card again. Wow. And it's definitely speaking to this empowerment of the mother that's had the greatest charge. Certainly that's had to lead the charge, because we already know the imbalances with the feminine and masculine energies that have had to be that have had to be contended with, you know, and that have been conditioned naturally unto the masculine energy, known and unknown. It's like breaking the yoke of all of that for either side again, and everybody gets to be regenerated. And nobody's left behind, because, you know, even if you just regenerating the woman, if that were the case, there's still hope for the feminine energy to still pass on that regeneration of wealth to her man-child, and so on and so forth. But the ideal concept, which I truly hold in high faith, is that this is what has held space for evolution to be as it is now. But certainly what's coming around is the masculine and feminine both evolved equally to balance that responsibility together now. So the feminine has done a decent enough job with very little resources and support to do so, and still somehow maintain to at least keep us alive as a human race, you know, to not have us completely smited from the earth. But now with both energies on one accord, man, sky is the limit. Sky is the limit. Here is the promise of the future right here, to turn everything that has been corrupted around for the greatest good of creation and the preservation, not just the preservation, but for the prosperity of creation. Indeed, I believe for it. I do. It's happening. It may not look like it at times, but it is. It is. So I'm gonna leave this here. Yeah, happy full moon to you. And if anything, this speaks to the energy that I spoke of in the message of what's being cleared away. Like, it's like our souls are calling out to the universe. Enough, you know, of the purest of souls and the most well-intentioned of souls are calling out to the universe for this happily ever after effect. Even though it doesn't look like it doesn't seem like it at times, but that's what is that's the response of the universe to call into order the transits and the support from a celestial source that will help us to filter out the things that defer this dream, you know, and it starts from a very individual perspective, first and foremost. So for those of us that are carrying the torch of this transition over the threshold for our children's sake, and lo and behold, for our own, we're being supported to filter out the things that we've already released in the mind, you know, certainly in the spirit, and also forging a release of those things onto us. Again, in the subconscious, the things that we don't even know are still lingering, that we don't even subscribe to anymore. It's going to lighten our energy and lighten our load to be more fluid in the faith of what we believe to be doing for the greatest good of all. Starting with ourselves, of course, but lightening our hearts and minds to just like trust that we are operating in a high frequency and in the most ideal form, you know, like what really is working for us. Because the biggest issue is really balancing the sheer insecurity of the fact that we're not. And I feel like if we can release the thought patterns and ideas that keep us attached to those insecurities, there's so much more that we could do for ourselves for the future, and probably at a much more accelerated rate than what we perceive it to be right now. We're literally working smarter and not so hard. At the moment we can really release that concept of what hard work really is, and if it's even what we wanted, what we've been told it should be. And if we subscribe to that ideal, we get to decide. And certainly is not a decision that's going to be made for us in the highest, for our highest good. For as long as we continue to contribute to this ideal of working your fingers to the bone or committing yourselves to concepts that are ultimately like a dead-end job, not literally a dead-end job, but the concept itself is like a dead end to your energy. That we'll be allowed to do so. But the moment that we decide, and many of us already have, it's just really needing to be affirmed in our revolutionary resilience, at this point, that's the minute that things change. And the minute that we did is the minute that things begin to evolve and accelerate in that favor, simply on account of our intention, our insistence that it be so, and our commitment to creating that reality, even when it seemed quite doomed or when there was a great deal of resistance against it. So all I'm trying to say is keep up the good work. You're doing great. That's the moral of the story here. If nobody told you in the last 10 years that you're doing great, I'm here to tell you that you are. Keep it up. All right, so I'm gonna leave it there. Thank you for listening and watching. Happy full moon, partial lunar eclipse to you. Don't forget to get some rest and reflect and rejuvenate, and don't try. Perfect lunation for me to urge you not to try to do too much. This is not the transit for that. This is about acceptance, reflection, and release in submission. So if you one of them types that don't think you're doing nothing unless you're doing something, you're going to get a rude awakening. And you might just exhaust yourself into, either fatigue or unwellness on account of your resistance to what is just celestial order at this time. Universal, no doubt. So go with the flow. Go with the flow. You have permission. Nobody's going to hold you, gonna call you lazy or good for nothing because you decided to take a nap when your body says you needed it, or take a rest, or do something fun, or just sit in silence if that's what grounds your energy. But by all means, do not overexert yourself. There'll be plenty of time, plenty of work to be done once the smoke clears. All right? Last time, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, especially if you're still here at this point. You're a real one. Until next time, as always, I leave you with peace.